Welcome to ICL's The Bottom Line, Fast Fertilizer Facts, where we break down fertilizer practices, products, and cutting-edge agronomy techniques in 10 minutes or less. In each episode, we will deep dive into one topic, one product, or one practice, and end up where it matters most, the bottom line. Today, we're diving into mid-season foliars, how they improve the yield, the importance of timing for nutrient uptake, and the real impact on your bottom line. So hi, Jason.
Hello, Britt. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing well.
So we don't waste any time here. Let's just start with the basics. What exactly are mid-season foliars, and why should growers be considering them for their crops?
Okay, awesome question. So mid-season foliar, where we're talking about foliar applications or applications of nutrients directly to the leaves of plants, the crops that we're growing. And we're doing it in the middle of the season. So early season nutrition comes, often in the form of, soil applied approaches. There's not a lot done in the late season other than waiting for harvest, but that mid-season foliar application is a really great way to impact positively the growth and development of the crop, the yield potential, and in some cases, the quality of the crop as well, by supplying nutrients that are expected or known to be needed by that crop as it's growing vegetatively, but also more importantly transitioning to the reproductive stages later in the season. Using a foliar application allows a farmer to be really efficient with applying these nutrients, particularly micronutrients. And whenever we can be efficient, we're impacting not only yield, but we're also impacting the bottom line for the farmer, which is very important in today's challenging economic times.
Definitely. And I know we've expanded our portfolio recently to include foliars that not only focus on those essential macros, but those mid-season micronutrients that are also crucial to yield outcomes.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And don't get me wrong, macronutrients are still really important, particularly potassium, which is required by many crops during the growing season to increase yield or stress tolerance or quality. But micronutrients are becoming increasingly used in agriculture, and farmers are becoming even more aware of the importance and the impact that micronutrients can have. So our portfolio is a very full portfolio or broad portfolio of both liquid and water soluble formulations. For example, we have Nova Elevate, which focuses on nutrients like cobalt and molybdenum. We have Nova Pulse, which also contains cobalt and molybdenum, but some other nutrients, including zinc. We have Nova Flow, which contains potassium along with magnesium, sulfur, and boron. And then we have a very unique line of micronutrients. The Extra line, Boron Extra, is one example that provides micronutrients, but in a way that combines it with a biostimulant package to help improve the uptake and the efficiency of those micronutrients in the crop.
Lots to choose from. So responding to needs mid-season is key. What challenges do we see mid-season foliars helping solve for growers, particularly during peak growing seasons?
I think one of the biggest challenges that's often unrecognized is that for most crops, genetic improvement has increased the yield potential of those crops, and with that improvement in yield potential becomes an increase in the demand for nutrients. And for some nutrients, if we take potassium as an example, crop can have a huge demand for a nutrient each and every day through a broad range of the growing season. And while the soil definitely plays a role in supplying those nutrients, potassium as an example, we know that there are conditions under which the soil may not be able to supply nutrients fast enough for the peak demand that crop requires. And so by using well-timed foliar applications, we can supplement what the soil is able to provide, but also help overcome some of those temporal challenges that may be associated with soil moisture as an example that can impact the uptake and the availability of nutrients like potassium.
So based on some of the latest research we have done, are we seeing any trends in the use of mid-season foliars? I know we've seen more growers adopting this practice over the years.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a couple of things I can comment on. And one is that foliar applications are very easy for a retail distributor to implement, and very easy for a farmer to implement as well. We know that regardless of the crop, whether it's soybean crop in Iowa or an almond crop in California, there will be management passes that will occur across that field, usually focused on crop protection, fungicides, insecticides, herbicides, plant growth regulators, whatever is needed, based on the crop. But all of those passes across the field, provide an opportunity to apply foliar, nutrition, macronutrients, micronutrients, or some combination of those. And then the second point that I'll make is that the quality of the products, the compatibility, the uptake, the efficiency, becomes better and better. As we learn more about how to formulate with nutrients, but also start to incorporate other technologies like biostimulants that can help further improve the effectiveness and the ROI that these foliar nutrition applications bring to the farmer.
Okay. And from a financial standpoint, how do mid-season foliars impact the grower's bottom line, both upfront and in terms of ROI?
Mm-hmm. Well, I've already kind of alluded to this, but when we have these planned passes across the field for crop protection, we talk about a free trip. So we're already planning to apply a fungicide, as an example, in a soybean crop mid-season. That's a great opportunity to include a product like Nova Pulse. We're taking care of the application fee with that crop protection application that's already being made, and then partnering that with very effective and well-timed nutrient application. And if we think about soybeans as an example, we can do this multiple times. So we can apply an early season herbicide application with one type of nutrient product, and then come back again later with a herbicide or insecticide pass with another type of nutrient application based on what the crop needs at that time.
Great. This is all really great info. Before we wrap up, do you have any key tips for growers looking to use mid-season foliars effectively?
Mm-hmm. So 2 tips. One is that tissue testing is widely used in many crops to understand the potential nutrient limitations in that crop for both macronutrients and micronutrients. And I think in the past, tissue testing was used to predict and plan which type of foliar application should be made. But in my experience, that's the wrong approach, because it leaves too much opportunity for indecision, and also potentially delays the application too long to have the most effective impact. And so what I would recommend is going into the season with a plan for the types of nutrients that we know based on past experience need to be applied, make those applications, and then use tissue testing to gauge the success of the crop management plan that we've chosen. The second tip that I'll leave the audience with is that while one application or one product can have an effect, the greatest impact in my experience from foliar applications is when we again have that plan of potentially 2, 3, or even more foliar applications throughout the season. Not necessarily the same product every time, but the nutrients that crop needs at those specific times to have the biggest impact. And by using those multiple applications, the cumulative effect is often or almost always greater than just making a single pass or a single application in that crop.
Okay, well, time is up. That is all for today's episode of ICL's The Bottom Line, Fast Fertilizer Facts. Thank you so much, Jason, for joining us today and talking all things mid-season foliars.
Thank you, Britt.
We hope these insights will help you optimize your crop management strategy this season. Be sure to check back for more expert tips on crop nutrition as well as fertilizer practices. Visit ICL-GrowingSolutions.us for more info. Hope to see you next time.